and welcome to the Try Talking Sport podcast hosted by me, Joanne Murphy. Whether you are an athlete, adventurer, endurance enthusiast, or simply have an interest in sport, you've come to the right place for inspiration, encouragement, motivation, and as always, plenty of entertainment. I hope everyone is well and thriving as we get ready to embrace a new month. How is it almost February already? Crikey! I'm not complaining though. I've been loving the dry, crisp weather here the last week or so. There's a definite feeling of spring in the air, and it's made for some lovely long cycles in preparation for Bike Ballinrobe Ultra on March 12th. Did I tell you I'm doing a 12-hour solo bike race around the racecourse in Mayo? Yes, you heard me correctly. 12 hours on the ambulance track at the track. 1 mile loops. Myself and my fellow Galway babe, Karen, are both going solo for this event. I'm at the end of a big block of training this week, so hoping this lovely weather holds for a few more days as I have lots of miles to clock up before getting a well-deserved bit of rest next week. I probably won't be off the bike for long though, as I've gone a bit mad for road, or well, maybe off-road, picking up a fabulous Orbea Terra gravel bike from Mary Bikes in Ballinrobe last week. Big thanks to Eamon and his team for looking after me. I can tell you I am in love with my new machine. I've only been out on him for one 30k spin so far, but have signed up to the Cycling Connacht Women's Gravel and MTB Spin in Westport on the 6th of February. Galway Bay Cycling Club are hosting Ireland's first ever gravel bike series across the month of February, so I've signed up to race one of these events as well on the 12th of the month. And if all goes according to plan, I'm hoping to do the Newport Rocky Mountain High Enduro style gravel race in Mayo on the 27th of February. So it looks like I'll be spending lots of time in the saddle over the coming weeks. To be honest, I'm making the most of being at home for a few more weeks until, fingers crossed, a very, very busy season of announcing and travel unfolds for 2022. If you are looking to kickstart your triathlon race season nice and early and test yourself, the Castle Race Series virtual events kick off this weekend with the January event. There are 14 race distances to choose from across 5 disciplines, and you can complete your race at any time throughout the weekend. Check out the details on the website trytalkingsport.com. And don't forget Loch Crutra Castle Triathlon and Multisport Festival on May 28th and 29th in Galway. Won't be long coming around either. There's 20% off race entry until midnight on the 31st of January, so book your place this week to avail of that discount. Now to this week's guests, who made history on the 14th of January when they successfully swam from Ireland to Scotland, making the North Channel crossing in under 13 hours. The 6 swimmers, led by Ger Kennedy, are the first team to swim the North Channel in the depths of winter, making it an extreme swim in what is widely regarded as the toughest of all channel crossings. The team of Ger Kennedy, Dave Berry, Declan Bradshaw, Vincent Dunigan, Colin Morris and Niamh McCarthy join me on the podcast this week for a very special show, sharing their tales from the epic expedition. With insights on the intensity of their training and preparation for the event, as well as sharing stories from the swim and the adventure that unfolded as they made the crossing. Starting in the dark at 06:56 in the morning, they made land in Scotland as the flower of Scotland boomed from the boat just under 13 hours later. A poignant and historic moment, not only for the swimmers, but for their crew on board and on land, their families at home and many supporters powering every swim stroke with their well wishes and donations to the Gavin Glynn Foundation, who, as of today, have now raised over €45,000 from the swim, which in itself is an incredible achievement. This is a longer episode than usual, so put the feet up and grab a cuppa or hop on the turbo, turn the pedals and enjoy the show. You're all very welcome to the podcast. I have Ger Kennedy, Declan Bradshaw, Dave Berry, Vincent Dunigan, Colin Morris and the wonderful Niamh McCarthy, who made history in the North Channel swim. I'm delighted to have the 6 swimmers on the podcast for this week's very special episode. We've probably been chatting for the last 15 minutes and there's been more laughter than chatting. So listeners, you're in for a massive treat today. To get us started, now they have been all over the news the past few days. In fact, probably the past 2 weeks, there was lots of coverage for our swimmers. But I'm going to start with a little introduction to our swimmers by the swimmers themselves. And Niamh, because you are the one and only female in the group, we're going to start with you. Tell me who you are, where you're from, your background in swimming, and why you signed up to swim from Ireland to Scotland.
Niamh McCarthy. I'm a Northsider, a Dubliner, very proud Northsider. I started swimming when I was 4. I was brought to the pool with my sister my dad brought us, and I swam all the way till I was 15 competitively, until I had enough. I found boys and makeup and stuff like that. So I said, no more. The chlorine was ruining my hair and everything else. So I found new interests and I gave it up. And to be honest with you, at that stage, I more or less turned around and said, if I never see a swimming pool again, it'll be too soon. Because obviously, as a lot of you would know, swimming competitively at a young age means every morning before school and every evening. So it pretty much took up my life and that of my family's. And my poor father, Lord Mercy, was up every morning bringing me to the pool before he went to work. So it was very time consuming. I did love it, but enough was enough at that stage. So I pretty much gave it up. The only swimming I would have done then at that stage was on holidays in the pool with family or whatever. And then I took up triathlon a few years ago with Ger Redmond, who you are familiar with. And I did that for a while, but unfortunately my hips, I have osteoarthritis of the hips, so they gave up with the cycling and the running. So I got dragged over the south side by Mr. Morris to meet my fellow walrus crew, thinking I'd just be swimming on a Sunday at the 40 foot, not knowing that I'd be swimming a few months later from Northern Ireland to Scotland. So it was a little bit of a surprise, but that's pretty much how I got involved with these guys. And from that, I got kind of, I suppose, roped into swimming the channel. But to be honest with you, it was an absolute honour and a privilege to be part of the team. So in the long run, Mr. Morris did me a favour, and I'm so happy to be a part of these mad lunatics that I swam with last Friday.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. I'm going to jump down to Colin Morris, actually, to ask him the exact same questions again.
Colin Morris, school teacher, primary school teacher from Malahide. Grew up in Malahide, living in Donabate now. Again, representing. I was the sole kind of Northside representative till Niamh came along. Again, I don't have probably the same swimming background such as a lot of my teammates here today. I grew up playing a lot of team sports, primarily football. Long history in junior and amateur football. Obviously swam in the pool and, the primary school kind of swimming programs. And obviously growing up in Malahide was used to going down to the beach, but would have been kind of to get in and to dip into the water. And about 10 years ago, struggling with injuries with the football and struggling to go out for runs and the knees hurting, I decided to join the pool, and kind of on and off for the last kind of 9 years before COVID. Just training on my own in the pool, just getting stronger and stronger. I remember the first session I did, and again, just to anybody that's thinking about getting into swimming, the first session I did when I joined the pool, I did 10 50s, and I really struggled. I said, I'll start with something. I didn't know what to start with. I started doing 10 50s and built it up to whatever to swimming, I suppose, as long as I wanted, or as much time as I had. And then in the middle of COVID, waiting for the pool to open, I used to go down to the water with the lads and get in and have a chat and stuff like that. And I was looking at people. There's a kind of a well-known swimming spot in the north side, the Low Rock, where there's 3 boys there laid out in a kind of 900-meter circuit. And I was looking at people swimming around them and just thinking to myself, I could do that. So I started off and took the brave step one Saturday morning to have a go. And I just fell in love with the open water. It was so much better than the pool. I continued to swim in Malahide and down in Port Rann, near where I live in Donabate, 2 really good swimming spots on the north side. And then when it got into the winter, I was listening to people saying, it's a bit more dangerous to swim on your own in the winter and stuff like that. None of my friends are swimmers. So I literally used the internet for good purposes, Googled Dublin sea swimming groups and came across Ger, sent him a text and went out, had a first swim with him, and it went from there. One of the best things I've ever done. So that's me really. And to then become a part of this, the challenge when you don't get offered to do something that's never been done before all that often. So I jumped at it.
Brilliant. I love it. Next, we're going to come to you, Vincent.
Vincent Dunigan. I'm living in Kingswood in Dublin, just off the M50 there. So I've been swimming since shortly after I could walk. My mum, parents brought me to the pool for 3-4 years of age. Started swimming, and similar story to Niamh. So I just started swimming, swam competitively through primary school into secondary school. These 5, 6 o'clock mornings, I started just lucky that there was a pool in my secondary school. So I started swimming in there and then swam right up into leaving cert year, and probably slightly after, but then kind of just fell out of it, just kind of I suppose girls came on the scene, I suppose, and kind of other things started kind of coming up. So kind of gave it a kind of a miss then for a while, done a few other bits and pieces, a little bit of running, stuff like that. So kind of got heavily into running then about 10, 12 years ago. Got quite addicted to that. Got done quite a few marathons, kind of a lot of hill races and stuff like that. But then again, through injury, kind of started to ease off and kind of temper back in what I was doing. And then 18 months ago, one Sunday morning, we're a couple of the lads, thanks, Ger. A couple of the lads were just talking about going out to the 40 foot for a dip. And I've been out in the sea for 30 odd years myself. I've still a lot of scuba diving as well, but it's always been in dry suits. Hated the cold. So just one Sunday morning, jumped into the 40 foot, could not wait to get out of it. Thought I was going to die when it was that cold. This was August, September. But then just persisted with it, and then just kind of went back out on my own once or twice. Seen the first boy, got out to the first boy. Said, "Yeah, this is easy." So I went to the second boy, and just kind of it just escalated from there. And then one Saturday or Sunday morning, Ger mentioned the North Channel swim, and that was the end of it. Just kind of, yeah, I'm in, go for it. So just one thing led to the other. Really, just kind of naturally just happened.
So it's all Ger's fault, really.
It's all Ger's fault, yeah. Blame for everything.
We'll come back to Ger in a minute. Before we go to Ger, I want to talk to Declan and ask you, Declan, the same questions. Who you are, where you're from, your background in swimming, and why you signed up to the team.
I didn't know we were going to be telling our life stories, but I was born at a very early age. And then when I was I actually was brought up about 200 meters away from a swimming pool in Tipperary town, which was just nothing else to do but swim. So my Saturdays, like I'd spend 5 hours in the pool with my friends just messing around. And I swam and always have loved swimming all my life. I swam in college, played water polo. I went to the States, was in the States for 12 years over in Seattle. So I did a bit of open water swimming. I wouldn't say a lot, some triathlons, Ironman, stuff like that. Used to swim in the pool a lot, just loved swimming. Came back to Dublin, same thing. I was doing a bit of swimming. Everything shut down because of COVID. And I recall going out to the 40 foot or sea point on my own, and it wasn't enjoyable. But I remember one day I was out of the 40 foot and there was a piece of A4 stapled or sellotaped to the wall in there about the walruses. Come join us. We're here at 10 o'clock on a Sunday. So I turned up and I walked up to this fellow who I thought was Ger. And it wasn't. Ger's a lot smaller than you think he is. He's bigger in life, you know. And anyway, I was indoctrinated and I ended up just swimming. And I think what happened, and we were all swimming. We do a couple of 100 meters or whatever, and we used to just keep challenging ourselves more and more, swimming longer and longer, and testing ourselves in the cold, testing ourselves distance and all that sort of stuff. And I think there was a small band of reprobates, including this crew, that, I call them the Board to Swim crew, that really started just expanding our experiences. And then Ger kind of selected the people with that little madness in their eye to say, right, we're going to do something. And I'm very grateful to be one of the six, so that's how it happened.
The North Channel 6, there has to be
Even her 5 friends,
Even her 5 friends. There has to be a hashtag.
There is actually hashtag ketchup. That's
hashtag ketchup. Ketchup is in, the red sauce, ketchup or ketchup.
Yep. No, ketchup is in the red sauce. That's us.
Okay, we might have to find out what the story is behind that, but we'll keep going with our introductions because Dave Berry has been messing the whole time there. And Dave, we'd love you to tell us who you are, where you're from, your background in swimming, and why you signed up to the swim.
My name is Dave Berry. I kind of got into swimming late. When I was in school, I used to do a lot of cross country, rugby, bit of swimming, not much. And then when I got to those teenage years, just everything stopped. And then about 4 years ago, I decided to try and get fit again, joined UCD, managed to get 2 lengths of the pool, and was happy with myself, even though I was exhausted. And then kind of just stuck at it. I'm a bit competitive. Sometimes I just don't know when to let go. And I kept on swimming. And then COVID came along and I started dipping my toes in the water a bit more. Before I used to do a bit of sea swimming. I wore a dreaded wetsuit and occasionally you'd bump into Ger in the water. And the frowns would be given, the one-liners and the big no-nos. So COVID came along. I started swimming more and more and more. And Ger started up the Walrus group, which had been going for some time, but I only sort of found out about it and signed up for it. And it was to swim through winter. And one day became 2 days. That became, I didn't really stop swimming for over a year, every single day, kept at it. And then Ger, about 4 months ago, just sort of mentioned this mad idea. And we all kind of said yes with big questions, because it just seemed very, very daunting. The next minute we were on a boat swimming in the sea. So that's pretty much it.
Ger Kennedy, I don't know whether I need to ask you all the same questions again, because you've been on the podcast before. Dr. Ice himself, the King Walrus, expedition leader, the brainchild, I suppose, motivator. The event, whilst it only came to our minds outside of your swim group and maybe of the main Walrus group and your own community of swimmers and your families, we came to know about it only recently, like as in the last 2 weeks or so. But this event has been something that's been in your mind for quite a while.
Yeah, Joanna, I started October 2018. It was the first email I sent to Project Malin actually about this challenge I had, our concept of swimming the North Channel in winter, which was ridiculously extreme even back then, even now. And I started from there. And again, I had selected a team of international sort of superstars in cold water. There was actually no Irish on it, because we hadn't got the talent here in that kind of to survive, an hour and 7 degrees, but that's kind of your lowest limit. I actually had South Africans, Americans, everything, Australians, and they were all willing to come. And that kind of, we had an opportunity, I think in 2019, and I just wasn't ready for it. And then COVID hit, and then that kind of idea was, not going to happen. So I kind of relaunched it again about kind of in my own thoughts about a year before we started. And I just realized from the first lockdown in COVID, what kind of talent has come to my doorstep through advertising and, a Walrus group and stuff like that. Lo and behold, I found these five plus many more fantastic swimmers, and which I was thrilled with, because of that's the kind of, I always believe in starting charity at home. So I always wanted an Irish team like this, and a really hardcore team, and that was it. So it started from there, Joanna.
You mentioned the word extreme, Ger, and this swim has been done before during the summer. But what makes it so extreme? Why is it such a difficult swim to do?
Well, it's difficult any time of the year, to be honest with you. Put that out to your listeners there. The North Channel is the toughest channel in the world, in my opinion. Okay, now put cold water on top of that, or extra cold, which would be winter. So we're looking at temperatures ranging between 7, 8, and 9, which the lap of the gods, what we were going to get, to be honest with you, we didn't know. So we put all that in. I mean, it makes it an extreme challenge that, I was invited to many extreme relays over the years, mainly in Russia, say across Lake Baikal, or extreme peninsulas, in Siberia and stuff like that. And I did enjoy them, but they were kind of 15-person, 20-person relays. It's quite common in Russia to have those kind of relays of that kind of magnitude of people. So you might only do 10 minutes, 15 minutes. To me, we kind of selected maybe a half an hour at first. And that was against North Channel rules. And we said, look, we discussed it about an hour. And I said, yeah, I think an hour is doable. So don't forget, we're into the unknown here for a few of us. And an hour was what we selected.
That's a long time to be in the water.
Yeah, it is. We could have selected half an hour. The ILDSA, or Irish Long Distance Swimming Association, their rules state 1 hour for a relay. The rules are already written before we had to do a special set of rules for this circumstances. So I kind of went, look, for red tape purposes, I only had about 4 months to put this together. I said, look, I think we have to go for the hour, because I just can't really take on the logistics of and the ILDSA committee and actually changing the rules to suit us, which would be an AGM, EGMs, various things. But I was already taking a lot of people's time in helping us out and understanding what I was trying to take on, or what we were trying to take on. So I left. We got to the hour for that reason, and that was a standard we had to meet. Yeah.
In terms of training, Niamh, the type of training required, you mentioned you'd been a competitive swimmer as a youngster, had kind of moved away from it, had come back via triathlon and whatever. But it's one thing to go out and swim for an hour and do a relay across the distance that you covered. I think, is it a 35-kilometer distance, and it was 42 that you swam. So to do it as a relay in an hour anyway, in regular summer water temperature, there's a lot of training required for that. But when you bring it back down to the cold water temperature and the air temperature, there's a whole other ball game in terms of the training and the preparation required. Will you talk me through a little bit of it? And if any of the lads want to jump in as well, maybe just to give some insight for the listeners as to what the training was actually like to get ready for it.
Yeah, so I suppose from my point of view and most of the lads, I suppose a lot of our pool training went by the wayside and we just stuck to the sea. Obviously, as the months went on, it got colder. But in Ger's opinion, it still probably wasn't cold enough. So he dragged us up to the lakes, up to Glendalough and Loch Bray, just to make it more difficult. I suppose, as he mentioned there, like it was the unknown. We kind of felt it would be anywhere around 7, but like we didn't know what we were going to. It hadn't been done before in the middle of winter, so we didn't know what to expect. So I think Ger's thinking was that if we were up there and we were in 5, 6, 7 degrees swimming in that, and we were able to do it and get out and get our core temperature back up, that we would be able to do whatever the North Channel threw at us in January last week. So we did a few trips, like team trips, when we were able to organise all 6 of us free. And that would have consisted of getting in for, I suppose 20 to 30 minutes in those temperatures. And then trying to warm up outside on the bank of the lake. And then a couple of us would have gone up at various times that suited us. Like I was able to go up in the mornings once I did the school run, and Vincent sometimes as well, and Dave. And then a couple of the girls as well would come with us. So we do it ourselves, like we supplement our training in the midweek, and we go up to the lake again, maybe Loch Bray, and do the same thing. And that was like, I honestly think that was a godsend, because I just think it's hilarious that we say the Irish Sea wasn't cold enough. Like, who would ever utter those words and think that it was true? But like, I think what Ger did in bringing us up there was actually huge help to us, because when we did swim the North Channel, there wasn't that major shock that we could have had. And also then, we would have had the weekend training with the rest of the walruses as well. So we continued that as a group, and ultimately then did our own training most days. I know I met Colm. He's a fellow Northsider, so I'd meet him at Low Rock or out in Terra Bay, and we do our swimming out there after school or whatever. And we try every time we got in closer and closer to the swim day to do an hour, just so we got our body used to it. Obviously, some of the times there in December, January, it was dark as we were nearly getting into the water, so we were swimming in complete darkness. So that was a mental challenge as well. But I think from all of our points of view, I know Declan, obviously, he works away a lot as well. So he would have done a good few lake swims in various places that he was in as well. So it was just keeping that momentum going, and then just like literally challenging your body to those really low temperatures. And it's like nothing I'd ever experienced before. You literally cannot feel your hands, your feet, or anything. And trying to get changed after the lake swims was fun, but it definitely stood to us, Joanne, to be honest with you. I don't know if any of the lads want to add to that, but from my point of view, it did.
I would add a couple of things. So you're right, and the training together was really, really the key. We used to have to do these what we call qualification swims, which was probably the biggest test, and we did them together actually, because it's pretty much impossible to do them alone. And the qualification swims, we would get in for an hour, and I know some of us got the qualification swims and we were swimming at 8.3 degrees, and we'd swim for an hour and work hard for that hour. But then we'd get out and we'd have to hang around the 40-foot or Killiney Beach for 3 hours, and then we get in again for another hour. And that was really hard, because, and Ger will talk about, the recovery and what we had to do to recover to get warm again. But that was it's nearly like Hell Week, I would describe. And we did those really successfully as a team, and we had to kind of break it up a bit, and we certainly had support to do it. But actually what that did, as well as build, our own internal capabilities, we all knew we were capable of doing the swims after that, which was really important when we were getting into the water in Northern Ireland, because you got to trust the people around you. You know, if one of us were not capable of doing it, there's a high chance that the whole thing would fail, right? You know the rules. If someone can't do the hour, you're out. And I certainly thought when I looked around my teammates, we can do this together, definitely. There wasn't one weak link in the team, not one, maybe me, but not one, because we all felt, I actually felt that each one of us could do 3 hours if we needed to, versus we did it in less, right? Ger was the only one that had to do the 3 swims. But I think we were all well capable of knocking out those 3 swims. We'd been exhausted afterwards. But that to me was a real kind of mental barrier that we overcame in trusting the entire team to be capable of doing it, you know.
You mentioned trust and a bit of belief as well there, Declan. 2 of the words that come to me were the confidence in the water, that you were all confident on that start line last Friday, that you could complete it no matter what was kind of thrown at you. Dave, Declan talks about the trusting in his teammates, but then it's your own self-belief as well and your own confidence in the water, maybe how important that is for each individual, and then the belief of the team.
Going into the swim or building up to the swim, I was pretty confident that we all had it and there was no issue. But there was some unknown things. So, for instance, I got COVID. 2 of us got COVID around Christmas, and I got knocked back bad on that. So, right up until the Tuesday before the swim, I was quite nervous. And we had an extra person in the banks, which is Edward, who trained with us, done the qualification swims, and was in the sidelines. And I think if the swim had have actually been on the Tuesday, I'm not too sure I would have been able to do it, because that Tuesday I just got hit with another wave of just no energy, exhaustion. But the next day, the Wednesday, I went out and did a 70-odd minute swim in the sea, and that gives you back your confidence. So you always have that sort of niggle in the back of your head. And then I took a rest day, and then we went up and we did the swim. On the day of the swim, it was never about the fitness. It was the thing for me on the swim was the darkness. I'd actually avoided, apart from sunrise and twilight swims, I'd never swam in that darkness. So when I got in for my last leg, it was complete black. Like you could not see anything. And I actually found it quite comforting. I found it great. I just, like, you were swimming, you had a little green torch on the back of your head. Occasionally a wave would break over your head and you get this green light all around you. And it's kind of fun and eerie. And then you just continue on. And I know when the boat, so as you're swimming along, I had the boat on the left-hand side of me, but the ladder's on the right. So the boat would come around to be on your side. And that's pretty much, you knew when your swim was going to be up in the next few minutes. And I actually didn't want to get out. I actually felt great. So for me, the fear was the week or so beforehand for it. And that was the difficult point for me. But as regarding the rest of the teammates and stuff, we'd all swam for the water temperature in November. Was it November, early December? It was way colder. It felt way colder. That was harder. And then we got a relief. The temperature came up for a little bit, and then it started dropping again just before the swim. But for me, there was no question. We could all do it. It was just the elements of what we couldn't control. So was it going to be super windy and wind chop, or was there going to be an illness?
Did you have perfect conditions?
We started, it was really good. I was comfortable. When we rocked up to the pier that day, I thought it was pretty good. There was a period for about 2-3 hours. I think Declan and Vincent had a bit of chop for theirs. Like, it was not proper chop, but it was 2-3 feet. But again, it was nothing that we hadn't swam. We'd swam in a hell of a lot worse than that. So it was more just, we went out the night before, we all took bets on how long the swim was going to be. And a lot of people said 13 hours. And I still look back at that and go, how did people actually get that time? Like, because when you look at the speed of the records of what people have done on it, but then you enter in the cold water. So in the pool, I would do a kilometer in just over 16 minutes. But in the sea, no matter how fast I swim in winter, it'd be 20-odd minutes, because it's so cold that you're using so much energy in your body to heat yourself. But you're out of breath because you're generating that energy to stay warm, but you think you're actually swimming hard, but you're not as fast as in the pool. So there's those kind of elements of how long we're going to get. But as was said before by Declan, the 3 rotation, there was no question. Like, I actually wanted to do the 3. I think most people wanted to do 3. So kind of annoyed we didn't do it two-way. I'm going to swim back to Ireland. But anyway, that's another day.
Next time. I'm going to come to Vincent and Colm and ask either of you to talk to me about exhaustion. So both Declan and Dave have mentioned there about different aspects of exhaustion. You have the tiredness from the swim, but your body's burning extra calories to stay warm while you're swimming. You know, how did you navigate levels of exhaustion to stay fresh for your 2 swims? Because it wasn't just one swim, it was a 2-hour swim over, you know, a 6-hour period or a 7-hour period that you each did.
So I think just getting out, when we just get out and just doing a few little exercises to warm up and start getting our body temperatures up, like our body temperatures have dropped to 27.5, 28 degrees, which is, it's abnormal. Like we should be all in ICU at this stage, you know, but we were so used to that as well. But then you look at your watch and look at what you've burnt in, say, this way scenario, maybe burnt 700 or 800 calories, but what the body is trying to reheat in the hour or two after that is phenomenal. Me personally, I wasn't a huge eater, but I knew that I had to eat and kind of just get high calorie food. So it was just noodles, just getting some food in to try and get it up, to try and get some heat back into the body, not burn too many calories. And then going on from that, it was just hanging around, just trying to, like, I had a lot of dried fruit as well. But I think even though when the body temperature comes back up and you feel actually quite good, the body still hasn't recovered, even getting in for the second swim. So maybe that's playing on your head a little bit as well. And maybe on the second swim, I could feel it a little bit, maybe a little bit of a cramp and stuff like that on the second swim. But it was just, I suppose, passing the time, just trying to get it to eat as much as we can, keep yourself well hydrated. Because there's just even fluids, from a fluid point of view, just because you're in the water and you don't feel thirsty, but the body is just kind of, it's using so many calories to keep itself warm. As Dave was saying, like, you're swimming, you don't realize how many calories you're burning to keep the body warm, to keep it moving. Like, you get cold, the whole body just kind of freeze up.
I'm listening to you and I'm like, 26 degrees and the body's going to freeze up and what?
Yeah, we were out on one of our training swims there probably back in, I think it was around early December, late November, but we were using just your regular thermometers that you would buy in the pharmacy, but they all cut out at about 32 degrees. So we have the little thermometers that we would check the water temperature. And so just one day I decided to stick it in my mouth. You just put it under the tongue, the way your mum would have done years ago, putting a little glass thermometer under your tongue. And I'm just looking at this thing and just kept going down and down and down and down. So I think when it started, I think I got down to about 27.6, 27.8 at one stage. And you kind of realizing I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be still standing talking to people. But I think that kind of built a lot of confidence in us as well. The fact that we knew we were able to control our body, to let it go down that low, and we could actually recover from it. So when you leave the temperature in your mouth, every 10 or 15 minutes, you can see it starting to creeping up. And then it gets to probably 31, maybe 32 degrees, but it takes a dip again. And then slowly it comes up and then you're back up within, I'd say probably with 90 minutes it takes to get it back up to a 36 and a half degrees. So like the energy the body is taking to do that, it's just massive. Like it's just amazing to see it, and the way the confidence it built in us all being able to do that was amazing.
And before I pop across to Ger, because I want to talk a little bit more about some of those recovery strategies and things that you did. But before I do that, Colm, can I ask you, how did you decide who was going to do the rotations? Did Ger decide that? I was
just going to say, you might have to keep flicking over to Ger. My background is in team sports, and any successful team, I mean, needs a manager or a captain, depending on the sport, to make decisions. And they need the people underneath them, and depending on the sport, to back those decisions. And again, I manage football teams, and whatever decision you make, if you win the match, it was the right decision. So we won our swim. So we got there. So the decisions that he made were the right ones as far as I'm concerned. And that's the way it goes. And when you make those decisions, it's on you. And it was on Ger, and I'm sure that was added pressure to him. But you know, he had various reasons, obviously, why he made those calls, but we got there, so they were the right calls. Just to switch back a little bit to the exhaustion that you asked Vincent about there. Two things for me: to be with these people on that boat on that day was an absolute privilege. And I didn't feel exhaustion. It was one of the best days of my life. Overall, it was an amazing experience. And the other little crew member that kept me going might have done the rest of their heads in was the music. Music was a massive part of the boat. With the playlist going all day, upbeat music, so it really helped. It might have annoyed a couple of them at times, but overall it helped.
Just to talk to me again about the relay, you started just before 7 o'clock Friday morning.
6:56.
6:56, the bell tolls, and Ger got into the water first and did an hour. Yeah,
and I was in next. Just starting to. I probably a few minutes, it's still in darkness, and I kind of swam into light. Declan took over for myself, then Niamh, then Vincent, and then Dave. And then obviously back to Ger for round 2 and just Ger for round 3. It was the last hour was kind of touch and go whether I'd be getting in again. And that was a little bit, I was called in a couple of times to the captain. You're definitely going in. You're definitely not. You're definitely going in. But again, none of it mattered. We got out. We got to Scotland as a team. That's all that mattered.
There must have been great excitement and nervous excitement on the boat before you went in. But before we come to all of that, Jared, the recovery, because that is massive. I mean, that's life or death, really. You know, you've done all your training, you've done all your swimming, but if you don't recover properly in between your stints, you're not going to be able to get back in the water again. And obviously you were under supervision with the medical team that were on board and things like that. But talk us through some of the extremes that you went to make sure that your team were safe when they came out of the water.
The team said about the preparation for water temperatures is only part of it as well. Swimming in lakes, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, non-buoyancy, things like that. That's okay. That'll get you so far. But it's the aftershock or the after drop that's going to come at you after your 1 hour swim in 8 degrees. It's for normal people, it's quite shocking. I came up with the name is Confined Recovery, which is basically standing in a 1 meter squared area with a series of squats or leaving lunges or a kind of, we're now calling it calisthenics movements, structured movements, and a certain counts of say 4 by 15 sets. This would actually start to pump the cold blood back into our body and start to work the body in a confined space. So we're actually practicing on the beach so that when I bring everyone onto the boat, we remove the seats, we remove certain seats from the boat to create a space. And then one of our team members, Kelly, was able to do these calisthenic movements on the boat in count form, exactly the way we practiced on the beach. And it was a big success, very big success. And every swimmer protocol had to go through it, regardless if they're strong, weak, or in recovery. They had to go through this process. And then they would rest. Dr. Darren would take over and he would measure again. And if we say, okay, it's still very low at 29 degrees, well, then we repeat more of these squat calisthenics movements, And it was quite groundbreaking, actually, because no one ever has done this kind of method. And it's not new. It's just, I've seen it before. I've seen it before in people running on the spot and jogging. We couldn't run on the spot because we're on a boat. We can't do kind of press ups or stuff like that. We haven't got the room. So we had to come up with an alternative. And we came up with squats, and a bit of music actually complemented the squats as well, which really worked very well.
So there's one swimmer swimming. There was one swimmer warming up. What was everybody else doing in between their swims, or while you were waiting to get into the water?
Suffering Columns playlist.
Throwing stones in the water.
Or slagging me, Joanne.
We were always sporting Eve, all 13 of us.
You find, when you do a relay, say, okay, 1 hour in, 5 hours out. That sounds all lovely, right? Sounds fantastic. But before you know it, you've got 1 hour recovery. You've got an hour to get your food together, which everything gets slowed and everything becomes. Then you have a bit of time to rest. If you're lucky, you might get less than an hour, half an hour. And before you know it, someone says to you, you got an hour to go for your rotation. And this time just goes by so quickly. We've had this many times under relays, and the 5 hours, but now put in the cold factor on top of that, everything is double hard. The basic kind of putting your gear away. We didn't have the room. Gear started to get lost. Towels were getting wet. Togs were getting. Are you putting on dry togs, wet togs? Everything becomes a fuss because that's just the way it is on a small boat. And the boat was 11.5 meters. And that's quite a small boat with 13 people on it. So, So, and then you're cold and you're sweating, and then you're exhausted from actually swimming in the cold water. So everything gets harder and harder and harder. And the only thing we're lucky, it didn't rain. If we had rain, it would have been an absolute nightmare. And if the sea was rougher, so we really done well in our conditions, you know.
I want to ask you about nerves and excitement. There was a lot of media coverage before you went to the swim because it was such an extreme challenge. It was a big, massive thing that you were going to undertake. So there must have been a level of great excitement with the publicity. The WhatsApp groups were flying, but also a sense of nervousness. How did you deal with nerves? Were you afraid? Anybody afraid of what was about to be undertaken?
We were just get us to the start line, just get us started. So it was just impatience. That's where we were going. And once we started, we knew we could finish. And so we were just the weather window. That was it. It was just get us to that start line. And I know we were all kind of doing some media interviews and, you know, giving quotes, and Niamh was, you know, giving us coaching on how to do all that. And Dave was brilliant as well as setting up all the things. But really get us to that start line, right? That's the way I thought about it anyway.
We all knew that once we get into the water, there was nothing was going to stop us. We had quite a small weather window, but it was just perfect. I don't think we could have asked for better conditions. There's no rain, a little bit of chop in the second half, but we were just blessed. We'd done the training, so it made it was enjoyable.
I was the last to swim, so I had 5 hours in the boat of watching everyone. Between my first and my second swim, the time absolutely flew by because you had the hour of trying to get warm, then you'd heat, then you'd have a bit of time to yourself, have a bit of banter, and then you get ready to going again. But the first 5 hours, I think the last 40 minutes, I just got really nervous just before I got into the water. And then as soon as I hit the water, and I think it was the same with everyone that I watched beforehand, it was just go. We knew exactly what we were doing. We'd done the training. And then going back to what Ger said, the only thing that really threw us was my last swim was in darkness. And because we had to watch the swimmer, there was no lights on the boat apart from little red lights, but it was really hard to find gear. So I couldn't find a hat. So I had to borrow one off Declan, which I've still yet to return or find it. And it was just that messiness of that's the bit we didn't train for, or the bit I hadn't thought about. So next time you just pack 2 bags for each of the swims or whatever it might be. But apart from that, I think everything else we were prepared for.
I think the only tension really before we took COVID very seriously, and we had to do tests and hand them in to our COVID officer Niamh every day, and that was nerve-wracking. That actually took away really thinking about worrying about the swim. I was terrified, and I was going into the school to work as well, which we all have seen what schools are like. So once it got inside the 7 days, that if you tested positive, you were gone from the swim after the months of training. That was terrifying.
One bit for the podcast I'd highly recommend going back and trying to find is his column appeared on TG Carr, and the interview was in Irish, and geez, he's a good speaker. Serious motivator.
We haven't told Colm that the second half of this interview has been done Oscuilga, and he's going to be the only one on the show itself. Everyone else will be gone.
He's going to his computer's going to start installing updates again all of a sudden.
People who mightn't have seen some of the videos, the swimmer jumps into the boat. There's a swimmer in the water. What were the rules around the relay part of it there? Like, there's no tag to pass over. Okay, off you go there, Declan.
I learned something from Niamh, and she was very clear about it. So there's this great video. So I was swimming, and Niamh was coming in after me, right? So the strategy is, and I'll kind of briefly go through it. So called up by the crew to get ready to go as there's someone swimming. As Dave said, both make sure that you're swimming right beside the ladder or just out from the ladder. So we were on the port side? I think that's where the ladder was. And I was swimming on the port side. Niamh was getting ready to go, and they pump her up, right? And then they say, right, go, Niamh. And Niamh has to pass me before I can touch the boat or get out of the boat. And then, according to Niamh, no matter what happens, you don't touch Niamh, or you're not supposed to touch the other swimmer. So anyway, as we were going along, Niamh decided to swim inside me rather than outside me, which was fine. But anyway, so I pulled up, and she goes, "Don't touch me!" And I went, "I won't." And then I heard from the boat some wag going, "I'll give her a snog."
I have that clip here. If you listen, here it is. Best of luck, Niamh.
Yeah. Don't touch me.
I won't.
Touch me.
So good.
Go for the snog.
So Joanne, any time Declan comes near me now since then, I'm like, don't touch me. That's like the running joke now.
Which I'm fine with, by the way. I'm fine with.
He's fine with that.
but in public though, I mean, if you're going for a swim and he's coming up beside you, are you in public swimming?
Oh yeah, I'm screaming at him, don't touch me, and the pub, everything, don't touch me.
It's done wonders to my reputation, Joanne. Wonders.
I can imagine, but I mean, she is the media diva, so hashtag notions maybe.
No.
Oh dear, I never lived that one down either. Me and her 5 friends.
No, it was fabulous. That was the Today FM interview was absolutely brilliant with wasn't it Dermot and Dave you were on?
Yeah, and then they put the podcast up, and the funny part was, which is where this has all come from, they had Niamh and her 5 friends swim to Scotland, so they're like, I just randomly picked 5 friends and said, here lads, do you want to swim to Scotland with me or what's the crack? So yeah, this is the new thing, they Niamh and her 5 friends, so I've never heard the end of it, but then I don't even think they're my friends. Well, I mean, at least probably 4 of them are, but one of them, we won't name one of them. But yeah, no, that's just a running joke at the moment, but it's okay. I'm okay with that, Joanne.
That's good. That's good. I want to ask about your families and how they felt about you coming home after a swim with the King Walrus, or maybe a conversation with the King Walrus where he says, I'd like you to swim the North Channel with me in the middle of winter in something that's never been done before. And you went to your families and said, yeah, I'm in. What were the reactions?
There's the door. I don't know, from my point of view, Joanne, I know my mother was going crazy in the WhatsApp group, but like from my home, like my husband is amazing and knows I'm a nut job, knows I'm mental, and is completely behind that. And when I told him that I had this once in a lifetime opportunity, he just looked at me and he said, go for it. Why wouldn't you go for it? You're well able, get the training in, listen to what Ger has to tell you, do what your teammates do, go for it, do it once in a lifetime. So he had absolutely no hesitation in pushing me and, pushing me out the door days on end training. He's happy out, gone for hours on end. But no, he huge support. And I mean, I know I joke about my mom, but she was the same. And my sister and that, they were all amazing. I'm sure deep down, they obviously had the fear of God in them, but they knew like that I am quite stubborn. And, all along, I was never going to let this beat me, because I didn't want to let myself and my family down, but I didn't want to let the lads down. 5 mates, I'd never heard the end of it if I let my 5 friends down. So they knew that I'd put the work and the effort in, and they were 100% behind me. I don't know, maybe some of the lads will tell you different, because they obviously, their partners or wives or whatever, but I think females maybe overthink things more than men, whereas my husband was just like, go for it. So I was lucky in that regard that it was a male I was coming home to address it with. So I got 100% support, and I'm sure the lads will give you their point of view. But
and Vincent, you were no stranger to danger, being a fireman.
Yeah, well, no, it was the same. I suppose coming home, there was why do you want to do this? Like, why can't you just go out and just go for a swim and enjoy the swim? And it's just kind of, you want to just push it and see what you're capable of, and kind of just want to do that. So no, there was a huge amount of support from at home, but as you said, there's a lot of worry and a lot of kind of fear for when they're sitting at home kind of watching it. But I think once you kind of explained all the safety procedures we had in place, and that we were training properly, it was all structured, we knew what we were doing, we knew what we were capable of doing, it kind of put my wife's mind at rest anyway. But no, it's huge support from at home as well. So, but she's just dreading to hear what the next thing is. That's that's what she wants to know next. So I don't have anything planned anyway at the moment, but I'm sure Ger has something. There you go. Look, the cogs are turning in the top of the head there. So we'll have to sit and discuss what comes around next. But yeah, no, it's massive support from home, and kids as well. Just think they think I'm amazing anyway. So they enjoyed the experience behind it.
And Colm, you're a primary school teacher, isn't that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So what did your kids think in school when you told them you were going to swim from Ireland to Scotland?
Yeah, well, at the moment, we're working with very young kids, with the 6-year-old. So I hadn't said an awful lot about it, but word got out kind of in the last couple of days beforehand, and they were all talk about it and trying to find out about the swim. But while we were away, I was obviously not in work on the Thursday and Friday, but it really built in the school while I wasn't there. And there was huge amount of lessons and going on, and huge amount of the tracker being followed on Friday, the internet in the school actually went down because there was 30 odd whatever classes watching, and I was kind of thinking of parents asking kids what they did in school that day and them to get a response. So I followed a red dot across the screen. But I got a great welcome into the school on Monday. They had organised to do a non-uniform day to add to the funds, which raised nearly 3,000 to go into the charity as well. And all week I've been asked to go into classes and some amazing questions by the children and things like that. So yeah, the school is it's kind of blown people's mind really of all ages, from parents down to children.
At what point during the swim did you realize you were going to do it? That you were almost within touching distance and you knew that, like, if we just kept swimming, we were going to do it?
When we were on the boat on the way home.
I think I knew from the time we started. Honestly, I didn't know how hard it was going to be or how easy it was going to be, or if we were going to do, if it was going to be a real slog at the end. But I felt once we started, we were very confident in getting it done. The excitement started to raise actually when Dave was in the water, and we could see Port Patrick, right? We could see the port, and we could see it, the lights getting bigger and the definition of the port. And then, we knew then it was either going to be Ger touching the wall or Colm. It was very clear that we needed to go no further. We were kind of disappointed and happy that, we didn't get our 3 hours. And then it was a champagne moment for Ger to have started it and finished it. And, because he's been our leader, because he's been that ringleader, and it's been amazing that he got to start and finish it. No, it just couldn't have been better. We all said we didn't care who touched that wall, but we actually, for it to be Ger was amazing. And then, the whole way through, it was all about the charity as well. And as we swam, it was like, we can't not do this, because I would hate to go back and say, oh, we're going to get some of those donations back, even though it probably wasn't going to happen. But really, I think everyone was doing their very best in the water, and there was no question we weren't going to finish. And I saw that as soon as Ger was ready to go and he had his game face on, at the start line.
He was very serious, all right, in that very first video that I saw at 06:56 on Friday, the 14th of January. Ger, I want to talk to you a little bit. I know we've delved into this before, talking about pressure. It's one thing to have the pressure to be swimming, but it's another thing to have the pressure to have your 5 swimmers behind you and with you, and the crew and everything that has come with it as this massive expedition, this record that you're going to do. We've talked already about going into the unknown with the hourly swims. How did you deal with that pressure? Did you feel there was extra pressure on you, or were you taking it all in your stride as you went, knowing that your team were so strong, both in the water and on the boat?
Yeah, great question. I've been an expedition leader for about 5 or 6 years, and basically a leader for about 20, with different things I've done in my own career and my own life. And I think all this kind of knowledge of actually being able to absorb that kind of pressure from dealing with paperwork, which had to be in order, from Irish Long Distance Swimming Association, dealing at a committee level, trying to choose the right swimmers, which obviously I did. Talking to the Padraig Mallon and Infinity, and the structure of the boat, which I've never seen. I knew it was a new boat, but he was doing some videos for me. So it's just compiling information. And the way I just do it, I just start compiling from 4 months out and start compiling. And just, we have Google Drives that we actually can completely fill up. I hand out jobs to people to do, to say, right, lads, here's a drive. I want to put all your medicals into the drive. And they'll be inspected by ILDSA and myself, and obviously the medic as well. So it was trying to, it's experience to actually get to that. And my job was to get us to the start line. And, when I went up to Dunigan on the Wednesday to stay there, and I felt everything was done, in my opinion. So I wanted to that was my start line for the first bit, was to get there and that I don't have to worry about, have I forgotten something? we've done everything. We've done everything by the book, very fine detail, recovery process, all that kind of stuff. Very, very important. When I stepped on there, I said, right, all I need now is another 5 swimmers. And, you know, I reckon, starting to swim at that magnitude with kind of 20, maybe 30 people looking at you, someone shoring on the boat. You have to be able to keep your heart rate in order, and your blood pressure will rise, and tension will rise, and you just have to, I don't know, it's not something you can teach. It's only experience will get you to that point where you're starting such a magnitude swimming. The world is watching you, and you can absorb that kind of, I don't know, pressure, if you want to call it. But, you know, the team are ready. I wanted to be a swimmer on board, not a leader, because we had 3 magnificent crew, Ger Devon, Edward Bog, and Kelly Admin. And I wanted to literally hand over the crew and the structure to them, which we already had trained them, and we discussed things. So I wanted to have my swim as a swimmer, not a leader, not telling people what to do. I didn't want that, and I kind of just tried to shut my mouth, to be honest with you, which can be hard because I know so much about it. And in fact, Ger and Ed came over and shook my hand for shutting my mouth, which was pretty cool, because I was glad I wanted to be a swimmer on board and not a leader. If you understand what I mean.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. Because I know myself from some of the ultra cycling stuff we've done, the meticulous planning that needs to go in, and the success comes from the meticulous planning and the training and everything that you do. It's not just down to the swim or the cycle or whatever it is that you do on the day. It's actually the hours and hours of work that go in advance, and being able to hand over to your crew and your crew chief and whoever's there with you to deliver stuff. One of the big questions that's come through from listeners is what were you thinking when you were in the water? So you mentioned there that you were not having to worry about what was happening on the boat because you were now a swimmer, not an expedition leader. So what were you thinking when you were swimming? Were you counting strokes? Were you looking at the fish?
Well, for me, I just completely, you become la la land, you know what I mean? I just think about trying to empty my brain and just think about nothing. Just think about do your rotation, do your best swim as you can. You're not allowed to wear watches or GPS devices, so you don't know your distance, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't really care because I know I'm going to swim an hour. It is against the rules to wear watches, so even though when you're on the boat you're trying to work out your distance, I don't go there because I've just experienced enough that you will get there if you keep rotating the arms as a team. And so it just basically no thoughts, at peace, because everything is done. I didn't say, oh, well, I didn't pack that soup I had every soup in the bag. I didn't even have any soup.
And what about the rest of you?
Mine is I count. Basically, I count every single stroke. So I know every 15 minutes I've done, it's about 473 strokes every 15 minutes. So I'm watching me stroke. So I'm getting me 15-minute board from the boat each 15 minutes. And they're giving me stroke count, which is 64. So once that stays the same, that's kind of me. But it says, Ger said, I just switch off and I count and I just switch off in the water. I just enjoy it, enjoy the moment in the water, just being at one in the sea. And then just, that's it. Just kind of zone out, just switch off.
I try to zone out, but then occasionally one of the playlist songs that Colin had been playing gets stuck in your head and you just can't get rid of it.
Did you have Baby Shark playing, Colin?
No. Dave loved the playlist, and there was music for everybody, and it was another part of the preparation. But I thought of the one thing that I thought of was, I think Declan kind of mentioned it earlier, maybe, was all the people that donated and all the people I'd have to look at if we didn't get there. That's what I was thinking of. And if I needed a little, we all love swimming. That's why we're there. So you're out there doing something you enjoy. But at times I did have little thoughts of those people who had donated to the charity, and I didn't want to be looking them in the eye saying, sorry, we didn't do it.
Avoid overthinking, Joanne, because if you do, it just ruins your swim, ruins your flow. And you get into overthinking about, Jesus, I'm out here in the middle. Where's the boat? What are they waving at me? Am I okay? When you go, you're fine. Just stretch out, enjoy that swim, get into your flow state, right? And that then, helps you with the cold, managing the cold, and you're checking yourself then to make sure that you're doing what you need to do,
I'm interested if anyone else, for me, I didn't notice the cold at all in that swim. And I was checking the chart. The lowest temperature was 7.9 that was registered on the swim.
It's adrenaline.
It didn't hit me at all. And when I was swimming, I was just curious as to what time I was. And then when it was half an hour left, I was, geez, I wish it was longer. And as I said, like when it got to the end, I was like, okay, I got to get out. But I knew at the end of my second swim, that was definitely my last swim because you could see land. It wasn't that far off. But I think that's all because, as been said by the other people, we all enjoy swimming so much. And when we swim in Killiney or 40 foot, we generally push it to as far as we can go until we can't get our socks on. As in, when you get out of the water, your hands are so numb, your feet are so numb that you're just... So yeah, Colin doesn't wear any socks for that reason, probably.
It's funny actually, Dave, because the training you did and all you did, that's why you had that feeling. Because you trained so well and so meticulously to plan that you're actually adapted to that water of 8 degrees, whereas you said you're not feeling the cold, your fingers aren't cold, you might be tired or whatever, but and that's why the training process of 4 months from, say, 12 degrees, 11 degrees, all the way down to 6s and 5s. That's why you felt that way. We all had recovery. No one had a horrendous recovery because the process works the way we train. So, and I agree with you. Yeah, we felt great in the water, absolutely. And it's like 8 degrees. Yeah, whatever, kind of thing. But you should feel like that,
Before we move to some of the audience questions and the listener questions, any particular highlights from the day itself and any lowlights?
No, I think the whole day was it was all high. There was no low bits in it. There was a few people getting sick. I suppose there was some toilet moments going on in the back of the boat at times.
I won't get into details, but there wasn't a toilet on the boat.
I was ill actually all morning. I had a really bad headache. I was hydrated, gastro issue the day before, so I was trying to recover. And I know after my first swim, they were all kind of, "You're a bit grey, mister," But I went for a lie down. I had I think about 40 minutes of a lie down. I got up and I ate, and the colour came back in, So, and then I'd say Niamh decided, that's a good idea, and Niamh went and lay down, and ended up getting seasick from it. But now we won't talk about Colin, and she was sick at column 2, but that's another story. But she did end up getting sick, and she had to,
I was grand actually until they said, "Oh, you need to get a little bit of rest." And Colin was down in the little, like it's literally like a triangle. So he had the long bit in the middle because he's like 6 foot, whatever you are there, Colin. And I had like this little tiny bit, and I'm not 6 foot something, but I'm probably that wide. And I had to go in and lie down. And I was trying to sleep, which wasn't possible. And I knew I wouldn't sleep, but they were like, "Well, you need to get a bit of rest. You haven't laid down. You need to get rest. You need to." And I just said to Colin, "I'm just going to do it because they're just going to keep at me." And I was like, "I know this isn't going to be a good, there's not going to be a good outcome." And then about 5 minutes, I turned around and I said to Colin, "Oh, God, I'm going to get sick." And he was like, "Jesus, get out." So I got out of the thing and I went down the back, and Kelly had made me pasta. And I just took one whiff of it when I went back into the boat, and I got. So I went out the back, and Colin, in fairness to him, like a good big brother, even though he's younger than me, came out and rubbed my back and helped me as I was vomiting over the side, or feeding the fish, as my son said. But then I was brand new. It was just literally, I shouldn't have done that. But we all learn things, I think, on this that we wouldn't do. And one thing for me, that just didn't work, because literally I could smell the petrol, which I had said the day before, I love the smell of, but not when you're in this enclosed little space. And I could hear the water smacking off. It was a weird feeling, and I knew I was going to be sick, but then I was grand after it. But I think the main thing as well that people do forget, and this was, I suppose, a big surprise to me, was the lack of space on the boat. It is very tight. There was a lot of us on it, and just trying to find her stuff and keep her stuff in one place. And then obviously the ladies, because there was no toilet, there was a bucket. So, you know, those kind of things, they're all challenges, and they're all things that you have to just get used to and just, you know, sort of suck it up and do what you have to do. But they all add to the challenge of the day. But overall, I think I know Vincent said it, there were no low parts. I think everybody had maybe a little dip where they were just tired or they were in the zone, but everybody was in really good form. And I think that really boiled down to the fact that, as Declan said, none of us was going to let the other person down or ourselves down. We were going to get across, whether it was like 13 hours or 18 hours, we were in it for the long haul. We were going to get there one way or another. And I think that we all knew that as well. So that kept us high in the spirits up.
And how are the emotions when you could see that, you know, you were nearly in Scotland, Ger was in the water, you were within touching distance of setting a new record, crossing the channel, incredible achievement. Were there tears?
Yeah.
From Ger?
Yeah, there was me afterwards, actually. Yeah, it was quite emotional afterwards, and I'm glad it was dark because I was crying my eyes out, you know.
Ger, when he was out of the water,
you know,
Ger cried. He wept uncontrollably, and rightly so, because it was a 3-year journey for him. So it was really emotional, and we all kind of felt that. So I think we were all emotional, for Ger as well as ourselves.
Exactly.
You know? Big high as well, I think. Well, the finish and the celebrations over there, and we had preempted success with our confidence, and we had a champagne with us, and moment we had the Flower of Scotland playing just as we touched the shore. But I think the big highlight, and you touched on family earlier for us, when we got back, and the very quick boat journey back, you know, nearly 13 hours to swim and 45 minutes back in a boat. But when we were all met with our wives, husband, my folks were there as well, other people that we swim with, and that was really that was amazing, really, for all of us. I think we, you know, all agree that was really special to see them all there, because we didn't really know, and you can't give them a plan or a time, so we were unsure if anybody would be there, and the people from the locals in Dunigan as well, you know, who the channel swim means so much to. So seeing the joy that your swim brought to other people was kind of something that I didn't really expect.
Because there's two emotional parts. There was that piece which Colm said, that when we got back in and all the families were there, and it was just a lovely moment. Everyone came up the steps, and it was just pure joy for everyone. But the bit that got me the most was at the very beginning, when we were on the boat and we left the harbour, and there was a few people there, but we went around to the start point, which is about 1 kilometre down the coast, which is, I can't think of the name. What's the name of the place? Robbie's Point, which is historical point of where they start from. But there was about 15 locals or 20 locals out on the rock, and they had torches to light up the rock. So Ger had to jump off the boat, which was really emotional anyway, because it was the start of the journey. And when he went in, there was a huge cheer at the start of the swim for Ger in the water by the people on the land with their torches, and also on the boat. And then it was suddenly like we were in it. And there was no question. There was never a question from me anyway that we weren't going to do it. It was just a question of how long it was going to take. Was it going to take 10 hours or 15 hours? But those two moments, the start and the end, were the moments for me. And the queer buns.
And the which?
You can't put that in.
You can. So we were, my wife made these lovely little buns for everyone, and we were eating buns, and at the same time Niamh was doing a radio interview live at the time, and we gave out some of the buns to the crews, and one of the crew members comes up right beside Niamh and just goes, "Geez, these are queer buns."
Her buns, and I'm like on to Jennifer Zamparelli. Oh no, oh my God.
So
yeah, that was
a bit of banter. It was just a small little moment, but it was good banter.
A bit of a distraction. Mm-hmm. Are you bonded for life?
God, no.
There's only 2 or 3 swim spots in Dublin.
Yeah, no, I don't know about the lads, but yeah, definitely. Like, I know I'm saying this out loud now. Don't record it, Dave, but I actually really miss being around them this week. I felt like this, you know, like they talk about the after drop when you get out of the water. I've had this like downer all week, like, because I haven't seen them or just having the buzz, and it just feels like, you know, we've done it now. And yeah, so yeah, we will always have that bond because we did it together. But also we had such great fun. And look, there was a lot of things going on in all of our minds beforehand. We were nervous, we were worried, obviously Ger had the added pressure of everything else. But I think by the end of it, we really learned from each other, and we took a lot from it. And I think it's something that, we'll all certainly bring with us to the grave. But there was a banter and a camaraderie between us that's second to none. And I'll never forget that. And the boys, as I know they slagged me, but they kind of did take me under their wing, and they looked after me. And I know even when I was in swimming, a couple of them were sending messages just to, let my mum know it's okay. So like they genuinely are good lads, even though I give them a hard time. They get it, and it's been a pleasure swimming with them, and I'm so grateful. I'm going to get emotional now, but yeah, it was great.
I know. I think the journey, Joanne, wasn't just the 13 hours in the boat. That was just a continuation of what we've been doing, like the team swims, the qualifications, all those things were, just absolutely critical to the whole our relationships. And I think we do have a special relationship. We'll have it for life, so and it's not just about those 14 hours of boat. It's probably the other 60 or 80 hours we were working together.
Well, it's like the training and everything that you did in advance was all the hard bit, and then the swim was the victory lap, really, at the end of the day. But you're not just the only winners from the North Channel Swim, because the Gavin Glynn Foundation and the people that John and his wife and the Gavin Glynn Foundation support are going to benefit. And I think there's one particular individual that you were supporting as well through the event. And the last time I looked, was there nearly €40,000 in the pot?
44, I believe, 44 now, and there's more to come. There's definitely more to come,
Absolutely brilliant. Well, we'll put the link into the notes, so if anybody's tuning in and wants to donate some more money, maybe we'll get it to 50,000 before the end of the month. I am conscious of the time, but we did have some questions that came in, so I'm going to very quickly ask some of these. One of the lads, David Curran, says, why?
David Curran. Why? Yeah, that's a big one. Why? Because look, to do an extreme challenge on your doorstep, which is Ireland, and to do it with 5 other Irish swimmers, it's very, very special. And to me, that was the ingredients to the whole thing, was to do. Can I do that? Can I pull that off? And that's the why, because it hasn't been done. But I have 5 great Irish swimmers, and the North Channel is exceptional tough. So there's the why.
Niamh, a question for you from Louise O'Reilly. She says, how does it feel to reverse roles and now become Ger Redmond's new swim coach for the 2022 race season?
Oh dear, poor Ger. Oh my God. Yeah, no, Ger, look, Ger was fantastic in giving me the confidence to swim, because I had lost an awful lot of it. I'd lost a lot of zest for life when my business took a downturn with the pandemic. And in fairness to Ger Redmond, he grabbed me out of that dark space and got me back doing what I love. And he'd be out there swimming. And the funny thing was, when I started back swimming after all those years, Ger was like, this was before he broke his neck. He used to be so much faster than me. I mean, literally, he was so much faster than me. And then he broke his neck, but then he got back, and he's been doing all his triathlon since. But now, like, I literally lap him out at Low Rock, and it drives him mad. Like, you can see the rage in his face that I beat him. So like, it's like unspoken. But Louise, obviously, and Paul Byrne, like, they have great crack. Like, they'd be watching us getting out of the water, and Ger be getting it like absolutely frozen in his wetsuit, like literally frozen. And Paul and Louise, well, especially Paul, of course, winding him up. How'd you get on there, Ger? Yeah. How did Niamh get on there? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, she did 3 laps. You've done 2, and she still beat you. So yeah, poor old Ger gets a lot of ribbon, but he's fantastic. And as I say, he reintroduced me to swimming and pushed me, telling me what I was capable of. I suppose reawakening that love for the sport. And now I literally can't get enough. If I could swim, if I could live in the sea, I would. Like, I love it. But I have a lot to thank Ger for, and I'll give him a discount on some lessons.
We'll pass
Mate's
on the
race.
message. We'll pass
Mate's
on the
race.
message. Eleanor Gallagher asks, how did you recover from only being in the water for an hour and waiting your turn to get back in? I think we've kind of covered that, but actually what she's asking in the second part of that question is, was that harder than a continuous swim? So was the waiting around and the recovery harder, waiting to go in for that second swim, and for Ger maybe waiting to go in for that third swim, than it would have been if you had to swim for maybe an hour and a half each and maybe only do the hour and a half each?
I don't think we would have lasted past 70 minutes. Like, people don't understand that 7.9 water, like, it's like our body temperatures were down at 28, as we said earlier on. Like, you've another 10 minutes max, maybe 15 in you before that tank, you're in complete shutdown. So you're out to recover. There's not much more in that with the temperatures. In summer, it's fine, but people jump down in 40 foot. Like, I remember you were saying there earlier on, why did we do this? And I was actually kind of thinking, why did we actually do it? And it was more like, why not? So 2 years or 3 years ago, I jumped in Christmas Day and I thought my skin was going to fall off. It was so cold and it was 9 degrees. And then like 3 years later, we're doing a challenge like this. So the why is, why not for anyone? Like, we're all different walks of life. We're all in our middle age-ish, and you just take up a challenge and go for it. Sorry, Colin. I forgot about Colin. Colin's a young teenager. Oh, sorry, Annie. Oh, God. Anyway, but why not? So 3 years ago, none of us would have even thought about this. Like, a year ago, we only started, well, for me, I only really started swimming in the real proper cold. I know Ger was there before, but it just snowballed, and why not?
I think there's a big fascination as well with cold water swimming, and even the jump in the amount of people that are swimming now because of COVID, generally across, not only here, but, you know, in the UK and further afield. And we've had Kat Pendleton, we've had Ger on the podcast as well. We've had Pat Cook-Rogers, who loves all the ice stuff. She's gone off to the Yukon Arctic. Gavin Hennigan did the Yukon Arctic. There's a big curiosity around doing stuff in the cold, even climbing Everest, things like that. It's just something, I don't know, is it something that it's tangible and we all know how cold it can be, and maybe there's a bit of a curiosity around it. But this podcast does come with the health warning. Please do not go and go jumping into ice cold water.
Don't try this at home.
Don't try this at home, anybody. We will not be held responsible for your actions. So this does come with a health warning. And obviously, as you've heard, lots of training and expertise and planning and everything went into this. So you know the man to contact, which is Ger Kennedy, if you want to venture into some ice swimming. But yeah, please do not just think that you can go off and do some of those cold water swimming. Brian Dillon asks, during your swim, can you describe the mental battle and what tips could you give on how you overcame this?
One of the things was not overthinking. And the crew were amazing, first of all, in the support, because all you could see was the boat. Can't see anything else. You can see the waves in front of you, and you shouldn't be looking that way if you do. So it's really about sighting the boat and the team on the boat. So they're counting your stroke, they're watching you, they're seeing what you do. So you're nearly overthinking. Am I doing everything right? Are they waving at me because I'm doing something wrong or whatever? So you really had to block that out. But what was great was, one of the ways to break that mental block was they had numbers that they held up to say, hey, you're 15 minutes done, you're 30 minutes done, 15 minutes to go. That 5 minute to go thing was just beautiful, right? And then the boat moving so that they were getting ready to ship you out. So the crew were absolutely critical in making sure you didn't play those mind games in the water by yourself, right? And you were waiting for those 15, 30, 15 minutes left, 5 minutes left, and you were working towards those, and your team were egging you on. So I'd say that was the winner to any mental battle in the water.
We did get a load of questions from Anne. I'm not sure which Anne it was, but she sent me a lovely message for the podcast. So we actually had some of these questions come in already. This one is for Niamh. Do you find that your teammates or well-wishers and the swimming community treat you differently from the lads? And if yes, do you like it or not?
No, I don't think they treat me differently. No, I think in this day and age, I think it's actually refreshing to see a female on the team. But I also think it's great that Ger had faith in me because, you know, obviously, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I suppose the mindset would be that the male would be stronger in these kind of conditions. But Ger will tell you that he has swam with females all over the world and they're at the same level and if higher. But I think the message out there is that, especially in this day and age where, you know, obviously women are out there trying to, you know, I suppose get our voice heard for what's happened in the news there lately. I think it's very important to let women know that our bodies are capable of doing what men do. And I think, you know, I've proven that. And so have a lot of the girls in the group with us in the Wars. They're all, you know, phenomenal as well. And I think it's very important to know that, you know, it is possible if you surround yourself with, you know, positive thinkers and people that have the same mindset. And if you actually realize that your body is way more capable and really and truly your mind gives up before your body. So it's just that mindset, you know, I can do this. I'm as strong as the lads. I'm as strong, you know, and it's not even a competition, but it's like, you know, don't put yourself down. Women can do it just as well or better than men. And I think it's very important to get that message out. And I have got that from a lot of people. They don't treat me differently, but they're just like, oh my God, you know, I don't mean you're an inspiration, but what you did is inspiring. You know, that you were able to go out there and do that. And you didn't have the fear, you know, you knew in your head that you would do it, or else you wouldn't have taken it on because you would have let your team members down. And that's kind of been the resounding like message that I've received from people, is that it's wonderful to see that a woman can do it, that she is as strong mentally and physically as the boys. Whether I'm slower than some of them or whatever, I still have the mental resilience. And that's been, I suppose, that's from learning from Ger and the 4 other lads as I've gone along. But like, to me, they've treated me in a positive way. And I suppose they've realized that they can do it as well. And it's inspired a lot of people as well. I have had a lot of messages from females, whether they are swimmers or not, just saying, you know, what you did is inspiring. And it's great to know that females can do these things. So, yeah.
It's brilliant. And you can even hear, and I'm sure the listeners will hear it, I can see it because obviously we're doing this over a video Zoom call, but there's a genuine level of mutual respect for everybody that's on the team. And there's a very real sense of community. And I asked about that bond earlier as well, but you can see it within you and how you all talk about the belief that you all had in each other to actually complete this challenge. And you are an inspiration. And I think, Colm, you know, I think kids in your school will forever remember when their teacher swam from Ireland to Scotland, and for many years they'll be talking about it and maybe not remember why or what or whatever, especially some of the younger ones. But it will be amazing to see who you've inspired along the way, whether that's the young kids or people like myself who are just dipping in the water, and Ger spearheading the Walrus Challenge, you know, for the last number of years. So there's so much in what you have achieved. And I think whilst you realize what you've done and the excitement of it all and the recovery and everything is still there, it's 6 months' time when you'll actually look back and go, wow, we did this. That I don't think it will hit you for a while yet, because there's so much fuss about it now, but it's in 6 months' time on some dark winter afternoon when you're going for a swim and you're like, Jesus, I swam the North Channel with a great group of people. And I think that's a fantastic legacy to have.
I think that's going to hit us in summer when it's warm and we kind of question why we didn't do it in summer.
Yeah, maybe. I have 1 or 2 more questions. And one of those is, what's the biggest thing you have learned about yourself from the challenge?
Again, I mean, just to go back on what I said, the biggest thing I've learned is that I can do anything I put my mind to, and I need to just stop doubting myself. And that if somebody has that faith in me, like Ger did, that he can see something that I may not see. He's nurtured it and he's pushed me, and I need to just, you know, believe him and believe in myself. So that's the biggest lesson that I've learned, is that, you know, Niamh, like, you are way more stronger in your mind and body than you've ever given yourself credit for. And as are the lads. And I think that is a huge lesson that I've learned from this. Aside from, you know, doing this brilliant, like, I can't speak highly enough about it. I talk about it all day long, and I'll talk about it all day long till the day I die. But I have learned that, God, Niamh, like, you might be nearly 46, you're carrying weight or whatever, but you can bloody do this, and so can all those guys alongside you. So it's a huge lesson. Like, it's mind over body. You can do it. That's my biggest lesson. Don't know about the lads.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Niamh. I definitely think it's kind of when you push yourself to something, what you believing in yourself and what you can do. It's everything about this experience just being positive. There has been no negative things behind it, and just pushing your body to what I'm sure we could probably even do even more. But it's all just positive. Everything's just been so positive, and we're all so strong out of it.
And the next question I have is, what's next? Would you do it again and try to go faster? And what's next?
To go over and back, I think, is if we were going to do it over and back.
In the winter or the summer?
I'm not going over and back. No.
Go over and back in the winter or the summer? Would it have to be the winter?
Winter. Everyone does it in the summer.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've been getting messages from different people around the world that are saying, can I do one with you next time? When you come in here, can you do this? And I'm going, it's very infectious what we did. And, for us to get on like this, it's very special. And I mean, look, there always is a next, you just gotta, I don't know, thinking like that way with the North Channel, which is a never been done before thing. I don't know, it's very hard to think of the next, because is it for us as a team to go to the English Channel and do it during winter in January? That's a possibility, absolutely. There is other channels out there, the Bristol Channel. It's endless, but the first is always the best, you know what I mean? And it can be very hard to recreate these kind of events. The next time it mightn't be so nice. Somebody could, you mightn't get on with somebody you might think you would now, and I've learned with caution as well. Sometimes, enough's enough, you'd be happy with your lot, and then just go back and support each other and share the love for water swimming and go out and help somebody become a better person in swimming or a better person, full stop. So I'm not saying nothing yet.
So we'll leave the last word to Ger and say thank you so much to Declan, Ger, Vincent, Niamh, Dave and Colm for joining me on this very special episode of the podcast. Congratulations again. I really can't wait to see what's next.
I hope you enjoyed that extended episode of the podcast. They really are some team. Congratulations to them all on what was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and what an achievement to now have both individually and collectively. Thanks for tuning into the show. You can get in touch with any feedback or guest suggestions by emailing me on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. You can follow all of our activities and podcasts on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram. Pop by and say hi, let me know what you think of the show, and if you're new to Try Talking Sport, please do check out some of our previous episodes. You will be both impressed and inspired by our guests. Finally, be sure to sign up to our new e-zine featuring articles of interest, some great discounts and the inside track on supporting your triathlon and endurance sport journey wherever it may take you. Sign up on www.trytalkingsport.com. It takes 30 seconds and I promise I won't bombard your inbox with emails, just the important stuff. Until next time, stay safe, keep smiling and remember to look for fun and adventure in every day.